What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another video from the 10-7 MMA channel. And this is my reaction to the Jean Silva versus Diego Lopes main event fight that went down yesterday. Now, full disclosure, I wasn't able to watch it live because me and Justin were commentating for Fusion Fight League yesterday in Montana. But man, I got to watch it, and what an incredible fight. And I gotta say, because that fight that was on the same night as Canelo versus Crawford. If you look, I'm an MMA fan, way bigger MMA fan than boxing fan. I'll watch occasional boxing matches. I'm actually kind of a fan of Jake Paul. I liked the boxing match between Darren Till and Luke Rockhold because MMA guys transitioning over. I found it interesting. But in general, I'm a much bigger fan of MMA. So I might be biased, but I think that, but I mean, where does bias come from, right? It's not just made up and out of nothing. I'm not going to support like one sport over the other just blindly. It's because I find it much more interesting and engaging. So that's where it comes from. But let's say you have a fan split down the middle, kind of a boxing enthusiast as well as an MMA fan. I think hands down, you would have to agree that this fight was better than Canelo versus Crawford. Canelo versus Crawford, I watched it. I thought it was cool, but this fight was incredible, amazing. That's what you have in MMA, a full-rounded, amazing, action-packed fight. And Jean Silva versus Diego Lopes was the best of the best, in my opinion. Incredible, unbelievable fight. Now, there were so many things that I want to talk about and point out because there was just a lot of information that we got from this fight and a lot of really cool tactics and techniques that both fighters use. So let's kind of break it down. I've highlighted 6 different points that I want to talk about in terms of this fight. So number one, it was Jean Silva's front kick. He was shooting throwing a high front kick, aiming for the face, and it looked like he was aiming right here for the chin. Now, the Weasel, if I'm not mistaken, I listened to a few breakdown videos. I believe the Weasel is the one that pointed this out, that the reason why he threw that kick, which he doesn't normally throw against a lot of opponents, is because of the tick that Diego Lopes has. He goes and he like touches his neck. People saw him doing this a lot during the Volkanovski fight, and people were like, is there something wrong with his neck? And the conclusion was no, that's just a habit, a tick that he has. I think he even said it himself when he fights. I think the fighting nerds wanted him to practice and utilize this technique to capitalize on that tick because he involuntarily drops his hand to his neck. And so it's like a bit of a dropping of the guard, a distraction, maybe a nice opportunity to throw that and land that front kick. And I think he landed it at least twice. So I just want to point this out. Number one, this is bravo to the Fighting Nerds team to develop such an interesting game plan, and it was working. Okay. No, I thought this was so cool. And he throws all his strike. Man, Jean Silva's striking is on another level. We're going to talk about that in point number 3. But man, this was part of his repertoire. And I thought he threw it beautifully. And the fact that he was able to land it in game plan, I think because of that tick, I just thought was really special and really interesting. Showed a very, very brilliant game plan. Just didn't work, but it was close to working in round 2. The second point, Diego Lopes used his grappling advantage, okay? And this is something that Justin pointed out in his breakdown video, that Diego Lopes had the advantage in the grappling. And maybe he didn't say it was as pronounced as we really got to see, right? But he still felt as though the majority of the fight was going to be on the feet. I think a much larger portion of it was on the ground than Justin expected, but I love that. This is mixed martial arts at the end of the day. Diego Lopes had the advantage there, and he utilized it. He got an early takedown when Jean Silva was dry in round 1 and just went to town on him. And some of the things that he did when he was in the mounted position. So a couple of things that were pointed out by DC and the commentary team is that he had that mount position. He was high on Diego Silva, meaning he wasn't near the hips, and that on Jean Silva, and he was above Jean Silva's hips. And what Daniel Cormier said is that limited Jean Silva's ability to buck, to push up with his hips and basically launch Diego Lopes off of him. So I thought that was really cool that Diego Lopes did something like that. Maybe that was perfectly tailored to the way that Jean Silva tries to get out from underneath. I don't know, but it was really brilliant. And then the second thing was that Diego Lopes did, which was amazing when he was in mounted position, is again, thinking with the new rule set, the fact that now 12-6 elbows are allowed once again, throwing those 12-6, or maybe for the first time ever, I guess they were outlawed since the inception of MMA. I can't remember specifically, but he was throwing those like crazy. And those 12-6 elbows are what made the position of Jean Silva on bottom so precarious and so dangerous and so problematic because he got ripped to shreds with those 12-6 elbows. And I thought that was just so cool to see from Diego Lopes. Of course, Diego Lopes had another opportunity to get Jean Silva down in round 2, but that didn't last very long. And again, both guys are a lot sweatier at that point, more slippery, so it's difficult to maintain a position on the ground in this situation. But anyways, I just thought it was so cool that Diego Lopes really got to use his well-rounded game to his advantage against Jean Silva. Now, Jean Silva, dude, that guy, when he was getting lit up with the elbows, was like smiling and laughing. And it reminded me of the antics that Conor McGregor had when he was fighting Dustin Poirier, and Dustin Poirier was on top of him, and he was doing the same thing, sticking his tongue out like, dude, this guy, Jean Silva is crazy, man. But I'm here for it, and I want to see him fight again. This dude he's wild, man. He's a wild man. And not just all talk, not just all at the pressers, in the cage, straight up wild man. Like that's a rarity, and I think that was pretty cool. But anyways, props to Diego Lopes. Now, moving on to point number 3, another thing to point out. Dude, Jean Silva's striking is so good and so fun to watch. Again, part of the reason why he gets those knockouts is that looseness that he has, and he was just really getting loosened up in round 2 and throwing just all these amazing strikes with lots of power, and then these crazy, weird 45-degree angles, spinning back elbows. Some of them were landing, getting great shots, coming in with another like 45-degree angle body shot from with the left hook coming in from under. Like all that stuff was landing and looked so pretty and looked like it all had a lot of power, but not with a crazy amount of like energy and muscle contraction, because he's so loose. But that allows him to whip those shots and really have that knockout power. So we really got to see Jean Silva opening up and throwing all sorts of different kicks and spinning attacks and whatnot. It was just so much fun. People were saying, I think Daniel Cormier said that he reminded him of Conor McGregor with that wider stance. And I do tend to agree. And it was a blast to watch the striking clinic. And Jean Silva was, I think, definitely winning round 2. He was coming back, and I did pick Diego Lopes to win this fight. So when I'm watching it back, I'm like, man, this was definitely starting to go in the other direction until Diego Lopes caught him with that spinning elbow. So that brings us to point number 4. Diego Lopes landed a perfect spinning elbow. Now, that is the 3rd time within a very short period of time that we saw a spinning elbow like that have a devastating impact. We saw the 2 back-to-back KOs, which was insane, at UFC 319, which I was there in person in Chicago, and that was so crazy to see. Carlos Prates land it, and then right after that, Lerone Murphy. Both guys basically got the finish because of that. Now, I don't know if it's counting as the exact tool that got the finish, but it basically led to the beginning of the end, right? He landed that, it dropped Jean Silva, then led to a crazy ground and pound, and then to a referee stoppage. I do want to say, even though I'm so happy Diego Lopes won and I was rooting for him and I picked him, God, I do think it was a tad early, that stoppage, when I watched it back. I mean, Jean Silva was still moving and fighting. I don't really understand it. And the round was about to end. I mean, look, it wasn't the worst thing in the world by any means. It was maybe a touch early, a little bit early, and it could have gone on a little bit longer. I mean, nobody's going to be perfect in there. No referee is going to be perfect. And maybe the referee consensus in the referee community is that it was a perfect stoppage. I don't know. But that's just one thing I wanted to say. When I watched it, it did feel a touch early. Let me know what you guys think, if you guys agree or disagree in the comments. Moving on. So that was super cool to see another spinning elbow do so much damage. Is it being trained more? Are people seeing more opportunities to land them? I mean, it was so beautifully timed too, because he was just starting to get Jean Silva to overcommit on some of those big shots going for knockouts, and he just stepped right into it. And he had nothing he could do. His arm was I think his arm was already extended. He had no defense, and just boom, I think he clipped him across the top of the head, completely dropped him. So there we go. Now moving on to point number 5. This is why I'm so thrilled that Lopes won. Okay. I'm a big fan of Lopes. I talked about this before in another video, and I know it might seem like not a big deal to most of you guys, but the fact that he has actually taken the time to learn English and is straight up fluent at it now, I'm telling you, as at least the version of fan that I am, I think that opens up so many opportunities for Lopes and allows people like me who are native English speakers to connect with Lopes on a different level and to really understand his personality, his sense of humor. I showed some interviews in videos earlier this week when you got to see his sense of humor and the way he was clowning Jean Silva in almost a very polite way. I think Lopes is a phenomenal fighter, is very well-rounded, showed what he could do against Jean Silva, who I think this is going to age really well. Jean Silva's so good. Dude, he's so good. So I think this is going to age really well. And now this is going to give him an opportunity to maybe get another title shot very soon. Who knows? Maybe he needs one more match, but you never know. If Lerone Murphy is able to take out Volkanovski, who knows? They might throw Diego Lopes in next or maybe after one more fight. So I'm really happy the way this worked out. I think Lopes is a huge star in the UFC. This fight made him an even bigger star. The fact that he learned English is making him an even bigger star. So, and plus he's just such a nice guy. I like his style. I just like everything about Diego Lopes. I like his fight style. I like his personality. I like his well-rounded game. So I'm really happy the way this turned out. And again, for Jean Silva, we're going to see him fight again. I'm sure he's going to come back. I'm sure he's going to just improve and get better. And this guy doesn't seem even phased mentally, emotionally. He's just tough as nails. So I'm so happy the way it worked out. And now the final point, why I can't wait to see Silva fight again. Guys, you know me. If you watch this channel, I love striking. I love all of it, though. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to complain by any means if we have a Chimaev like DDP fight go down again, right? I was there. I was going crazy. I'm a huge Chimaev fan. I love the intricacies of grappling as well, but striking is what I train. Striking is what I know much better. And I am just such a fan of seeing that artful striking that we got to see from Jean Silva. Very dangerous. Hit Lopes with very hard shots. And a lot of people are giving Lopes a lot of credit for that incredible chin that he has. And I got to double down on that because to withstand a lot of those blows and shots that Silva was throwing at him, I think anybody else pretty much in the division would have gone down. So I cannot wait to see this again. I want to see how Silva matches up with all the fighters in this division and how if people can withstand those strikes, if his style now will evolve and come to a point where just nobody's going to have an answer for him, because I do think it can get to that point with Jean Silva. He is that good and he's got that good of a team behind him. And so it is what it is. Anyways, those are my takeaways from this fight. One other thing I want to say too, that Justin did mention to me when I said, hey, it seems like the Fighting Nerds, they've had a couple of losses back to back in a row. What does that say to you? And Justin brushed it off and was like, dude, people are making much ado about nothing. It's the game. People lose sometimes. It's whatever. That's bound to happen. And I hear other people like Robert Whitaker chiming in and saying the exact same thing. And I do think we put way too much emphasis in this game on losses here and there. Their losses are a part of the game and they're going to happen. And when we have to open up and admit that ourselves as that, because that's one of the reasons why we love the sport. Anything can happen at any moment, regardless of the odds, regardless of the skill differential. Anything can happen in a fight. And that's the beauty of it. And that's why we love this game. So again, going back to this notion that, oh my God, have the Fighting Nerds fallen off? No, they've had like a ton of really high level fights. Fighting Diego Lopes, who just fought for the title. You're fighting, what's it called? Imavov, who's #1 contender. You know, Carlos Pratas lost to Ian Gary, legend of the game. I mean, these are all very, very, very difficult battles. You're bound to lose. It's going to happen, but it doesn't mean they can't bounce back, obviously. And it doesn't mean they're not an incredible team. So anyways, I think Jean Silva will be back. Can't wait to see him back. And this was just an epic, epic fight. Let me know in the comments if you enjoyed it as well. And also let me know if you agree. Did this blow Canelo versus Crawford out of the water in terms of excitement? I think it did, but you tell me if you agree or disagree. Thank you guys so much for joining, and we'll see you in the next video. Take it easy.